Welcome into episode 519 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, it was a rough start to the Bruins road trip, 5-game road trip, but they have been able to salvage the last couple of games here and put themselves in a decent spot heading into Seattle to have a winning road trip. But Bridget, first and foremost, let's start off with you because the Bruins had their most recent win over the Vancouver Canucks, and there was one young forward in particular who propelled them.
Yeah, Fraser Minten had probably his best game so far this season. I don't know if you guys think differently, but he had a 2-goal game. He had a power play goal, which is his first career power play goal. And then he had the game-winning goal in overtime, which is his second, I believe, his second game-winning goal this season for the Bruins, because he also had another overtime game winner earlier in the season. So he did that all in front of a bunch of friends and family because Vancouver is his hometown team. I think he said 50 to 100 people he had request and, attempt to go to this game and cheer him on. So to do that in front of them, I'm sure felt really good for him. There's just a good story. And I do think it's funny because he talked about, I think this was before the previous time that the Bruins played Vancouver, about how watching the Bruins Canucks Stanley Cup final in 2011, he was pretty young and it was kind of like got him into wanting to be a hockey player, like seriously consider going to be a professional hockey player because of just how many people were so into it and how the city was and like he was excited about it. Obviously, we know what the result was. It wasn't great for Canucks fans, but now he's on the other side of that. I just think sometimes you get those like ironic moments of being on the opposite side of what you were rooting for when you were a kid, and how well liked he is here and how accepted he is here by his teammates. It's just he's a good kid, and he had just a really nice night for himself professionally, and I'm sure, emotionally with some of the people he got to see.
Yeah, definitely. He was awesome. He was awesome because the rest of the team for a lot of that game really wasn't. So it was nice that somebody was able to step up, and we'll break down that game, of course. Now, if you guys remember last week, right after the Bruins lost to the Montreal Canadiens, so it was right before Christmas. I had mentioned that they bare minimum have to go 3-1-1 on this next 5-game road trip, in my opinion, to salvage their season. Not technically, mathematically, okay? I understand that there's 40 games left and they're not technically out of it if they lose to Seattle and don't go 3-1-1. But I think that even though the Bruins have won the last 2 games, Bridget and Scott, do you know where they still stand in the Atlantic Division and Eastern Conference in points percentage?
I believe they're still last in the division.
That is correct. They're still last, and Bridget, I'll save you the time. They're 14th out of 16 in the conference. So on the one hand, you could say, well, Brian, they haven't gained any traction. Well, that's not necessarily true because you might still be 8th in the division, but at least you're still within striking range of climbing. If you lost those few games, then you're really – so 8th place doesn't necessarily – there's levels to 8th place, right? It could be a lot worse at 8th place than 8th place and within striking distance. But I think personally that you need to there are certain games in the schedule that you need to win. I think the Bruins need to win this game against Seattle because it's good for their psychology, it's good for their confidence, and it keeps them in the mix. So is their season officially done if they lose to Seattle? Of course not. But I think unofficially you're just going to lose that much more traction from the rest of the pack. You've got the most games played aside from I think Detroit in a division. So and your last in points percentage. So these games matter. I know you're not going to win all 40 games, but I think you have to win at least 2/3 of your remaining schedule if you want to be a playoff team. At least 2/3 of it, and you got to climb a bunch of teams. So it's a big game against Seattle.
Bridget, we should make a note right now. So if the Bruins lose in Seattle on Tuesday, headline for Wednesday's episode, graphic, Bruins season ends with loss to Seattle.
Okay. Yeah. It's a little bit dramatic, but I do think, like, I noticed myself watching the last few games like they were playoff games. I don't know if you guys feel like that too. Like, not like fully, oh my God, like Game 7 kind of a feel. But like when they won on New Year's Eve, I was with a group of friends and they were all cheering like they were about to go to the next round of the playoffs. Like I think people understand the importance of these games, and I think there's more emotion from the fan base and maybe even the team when you are succeeding in those games, and when you do win it, it feels like really important. It's not like a normal midseason feel. I think it's a little bit different this year because of trying to get redemption for last year, not just assuming you're going to make the playoffs because that's not the kind of team you have this year. Whereas last year, I think, there was no reason to believe that at this point in the season that roster couldn't make the playoffs, but we know what happened. But anyway, I do think that people understand how important this middle part of the season is, because if you're not cheering for them now, like, and they're not winning now, you probably won't be. If you're this kind of fan, you might not be cheering for them later because you've seen that they aren't making it and you've given up on the season. So this is the time to kind of watch as closely as you can.
Well, yeah, well, the reason we all highlighted this road trip as so important is because of how poorly they were playing going into the Christmas break. Like they had to get it back on track on this road trip, because otherwise you're talking about 10 or 11 game slide, and it's like that's the kind of thing that does just essentially end your season, right? Like and it's such a crowded Eastern Conference, you can't. At that point, like it would be almost a month straight of bad hockey, and like you're not going to survive that. So when you start the road trip with 2 losses, like all of a sudden these last 3 in particular become huge games. So I do think, like we don't want to go overboard and call it like a must win, but like, there is a reason we've put so much emphasis on this, because it really is like a crucial part of their season where they had to find some traction.
Well, and your graphic suggestion for next episode was obviously tongue in cheek, but if they lost to Edmonton and Vancouver, like, it really would have been. I think it would have been curtains. I mean, like, so it's on the one hand, it sounds dramatic and ridiculous to be like, oh, really, Brian, on Tuesday, January 6th, when they're a point or 2 out of a wild card spot, a game against Seattle is the season. Okay, it makes me sound bad when you put it that way, but at the same time, the last 2 games, if they had lost them, they're done. Like they would have been done. Like that's how tight the conference is. And listen, when you have 2 separate 6-game losing streaks by January 1st, that's the bed you've laid in. Like you got to figure it out from there. Like that's how desperate it now is, because of how bad it's been for the Bruins when it's been bad. So their record's it's a little bit above 500, but guess what? So was the rest of the conferences. So here's your reward for winning your last 2 games. You're still in 8th place in the division. Now, that delta between you and 7 and everybody else is lesser than, because you won, than if you had lost those games, right? But I said 3-1-1 to start the road trip is the mark I want to see, and I'm going to stand by it. I think 3-1-1 is what they have to do. My opinion.
Just little quick note before my opening shift, just because this is crazy, and I know I've kind of highlighted stuff like this before, but the gap right now from first to last in the Eastern Conference is 10 points. The gap between first and last in the West is 35 points.
Yeah, I mean that is crazy. But it just goes to illustrate it kind of goes against my point of you have to win in Seattle because somebody could just, Brian, look how close the conference is, right? And I get that, but again, it's like you just look at the field and you try to. Every game does matter for the Bruins. Like every game matters for the Bruins and a lot of teams right now. Like you're not going to win every game, but who are you leapfrogging in the standings? If you were to do a crystal ball between now and 40 games from now, it's like you have to win at least 2/3 of your games. I think at least just to kind of be among the final teams at the end of the season, to be in the mix. Because look at the teams in front of you; it's not going to be easy. Like so you're gonna have to rely on other people if you don't take care of your own business. And like I think the Seattle game's an example of like you got to take care of that game, if you know what I mean.
And by points, like the Bruins have 46 points. The last place team in the East has 43. So like Columbus is 3 points behind. Like there's not a whole lot of difference between like the wild card teams, like the last two teams that'll make the playoffs and the very last place team in the East. So it's kind of crazy. We've talked about it before. So the pack is just extremely bunched together.
Yeah, eighth place is 48 points. So Bruins are 2 points out of eighth and 3 points out of last.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the fact that they have had 2 6-game losing streaks and that they are just 2 points out of a wild card, it's a very forgiving conference this year. Again, to go against my original statement, here I am playing both sides. I'm the plaintiff and the defendant. But it does. It's a very forgiving conference until it's not, right? So don't be playing with fire because it might not happen all year that these teams are so close.
Columbus is last in the East with 43 points, and right now both wildcard teams in the West have 43 points.
Wow,
it's so weird.
It makes for an entertaining season in terms of standings watch, right? We've talked about the years where it's like the Metro and the Atlantic, the 3 teams are set, and maybe there's a battle for the wild card. But this is entertaining. Between this and the Olympics, there's going to be a lot of entertaining hockey and standings to do.
Including, and this is a perfect segue into my opening shift, the World Juniors, which is now down to the final game. The gold medal game will be Monday night. And it's between Sweden and the Czech Republic, which is probably not what most people would have had. But, since our last recording, the U.S. got knocked out in the quarterfinals on Friday night by Finland in a game that went to overtime. So tough loss there. I thought it was going to be an uphill battle for this U.S. team all along. Just didn't think they had as much high-end talent or as much depth as recent years. They certainly didn't have the goaltending they've had in recent years. I think there was some questionable coaching by Bob Motzko. And I still thought they were going to get to the medal round though. Like that's still disappointing to not even get to the semis. And then in the semis, you had 2 great games. Sweden and Finland, longtime rivals, end up going to an extended shootout. I think it went 8 rounds. And Sweden comes away with the win there. And then Czech Republic knocks off Canada, this uber talented Canadian team with top 10 picks all over the place. Certainly Canada started the tournament slow. Then it looked like they were starting to put it together. But this Czech team has really had their number. They played a great group stage game that can't end up winning 7-5, but this is now 3 years in a row that the Czechs have knocked out Canada. That has certainly become a rivalry among sort of this younger age group. And so now you have Sweden versus Czech Republic in the final. And, both teams looking for their first win in a while. Sweden has not won World Juniors since 2012, and the Czech Republic hasn't won since 2001. So,
wow,
someone's ending a drought. Sweden has certainly had more opportunities. They have a bunch of gold medal game losses and bronze medals that they've locked up, but they've been unable to get over the hump for a while. And this has been considered kind of like a golden generation of young players for them. Anton Frendel has been awesome. Ivar Stenberg's been awesome, who maybe now be challenging Gavin McKenna for the number 1 overall pick in this upcoming draft. So lots of stuff there. Obviously, from the Bruins perspective, even though the U.S. disappointed, I think the Bruins prospects have a lot to be proud of. Will Zellers finished the tournament as their leading scorer. James Hagen's, I still see people like kind of critical of his tournament or saying it was up and down, which I guess is fair just in the sense that like, okay, he wasn't the absolute most dominant player in the tournament, but I thought he had a good tournament and he set up the tying goal late. Him and Zellers combined to set up Riker Lee's tying goal late in that game against Finland that sent it to overtime. They were selected as 2 of the 3 top U.S. players for the tournament by the U.S. coaching staff, which I think is certainly deserved. But I thought Zeller's obviously had a great tournament and really put himself on the map for a lot of people. I thought Hagen's had a good tournament as well. Like maybe not quite great, maybe not, deserving of like over the top praise, but I certainly thought he was good and probably the US's best all around player. Like Zeller's had the numbers offensively, obviously, but I mean, Hagen's played a ton of minutes. He was by far their most used forward. Played, he didn't kill a lot of penalties, but like he got D zone starts, he got matchups against top lines. And I thought created a lot. So yeah, those are my World Junior thoughts. I'm still looking forward to the gold medal game, even though there's no US or Canada.
Yeah, it's fun hockey. It's still fun to watch the prospects for sure. And I was gonna say, watching Hagens and Zellers together was interesting because it's like, all right, are we seeing like a little bit of the future? Maybe like they're put together. Could they have this combination in a few years from now, once they end up with the Bruins? So maybe the chemistry built a little bit and they get a head start. Who knows if they'll ever be kind of crossing and overlapping on the same line when they're up in Boston.
Can I ask you guys a question regarding Hagens that I feel like is something that was heavily discussed by NHL scouts and management in the last 6 months? I saw a video, if not yesterday, the day before, of Hagens, Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa, and somebody else, but it was the young prospects that were meeting Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid off the ice during the Stanley Cup Finals last year. You know how every year they have the prospects go meet some of the players and stuff like that. And the height difference between Hagens and his other prospects, but more notably Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who are, NHL, the best, in the world of what they do, but like center iceman, like number one centers. Obviously, Draisaitl and McDavid are on the same team, but anywhere else, they're both number one centers on a different roster. Obviously, McDavid's the number one center for Edmonton, but do you have what are your thoughts on Hagen's ability to be a true number one center potential with a bit of a height discrepancy between him and a lot of other true number one centers in the league? I don't have my answer. But clearly this is something that scouts talked about. I think it's one of the reasons why potentially he may have dropped on draft day. So I just don't think it's very common to see a lot of true number one centers like that are under 6 feet. So it's just something that I thought of. It was noticeable is all I'm saying, like the height difference on foot. And on the ice, it's you can't really count somebody out because of their height, but it's noticeable.
Yeah, it is, and it wasn't an unknown. Like it's not surprising. Connor Bedard is not the tallest center, and it took Connor Bedard a little while to figure out in the NHL, and obviously he's having a really good season this year. Like, I know people don't like comparisons to Jack Hughes for some. Well, I won't say for some reason. I know why. Like people don't think he's built for playoff hockey. He has had injury trouble. He's also put up a lot of points as a smaller center. And Hagens is built stockier than Jack Hughes. Like, I think Hagens is now listed at like 193 or 195, which is not weight-wise is not undersized at all. He's also listed at 5'11", and I will say there are times that I'm like, is he actually 5'11"? Like, I think 5'10" might be closer to reality. But yeah, it's a question until you see him do it, right? And we're just not going to know that answer for sure until he gets to the NHL and does it. So
yeah.
Also, don't know if I ever want to be compared standing next to Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl.
Well, but the reason I say it is like I don't think McDavid's not Tage Thompson out there. Like I think McDavid's like 6'1", 6'2". Like it's they're not. Draisaitl might be 6'2" or 6'3". I'm just saying it, in a room full of high prospects and obviously NHL stars, he just was noticeably the shortest one. But Scott, to your point, so Connor Bedard's 5'10". Macklin Celebrini is 6 feet tall. He's not the tallest guy out there.
Sidney Crosby's 5'11".
Yeah. So, I bring it up as a question. I'm not damning his height. Clearly, this is something that was discussed with scouts and teams. So that video was the first time I was kind of like, oh yeah, he is, shorter than a lot of, players that are either prospects at his position or already doing it in the NHL. But I'm personally not concerned. I think his skating is elite, and I think that similar to Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini, I think James Higgins has a lot of fight in his game. I think that Macklin Celebrini's fight is probably next level to this point. That kid's an absolute dog on pucks. You want to talk about somebody whose work ethic matches their skill? It's Macklin Celebrini. But anyway, it was just something I noticed, and I wanted to get you guys' pulse on that. But yeah, Scott, the way you kind of said that is well put. Like, it's until we see, it's not really worth giving a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, like I think when he gets to the NHL, I'm sure there's going to be times where he just loses battles to stronger players. Like that'll happen, and you hope he has enough other ways, enough other traits in his game to combat it. Whether it's protecting pucks, whether it's using his speed, explosiveness, first step to get away from guys, which I think he has. Like I think he can figure it out and adjust and find ways to still make plays despite maybe being a little undersized compared to some guys he'll be battling against.
Yeah. And I'll requote Don Sweeney just quickly what he said on draft night when I asked him, do you think he has the upside of a top line center? And he said he's been the top line center at every other level he's played at, and he's won at every other level he's played at. So yeah, that's what we think. Because against his peers, he's always been a top line guy. So just to bring that quote back around, which I'm sure I've done before. But also, Scott, you almost derailed me when you mentioned, and you weren't even meaning to, but when you guys mentioned Jack Hughes, did you see Luke Hughes score 2 own goals?
Yeah, and got booed by his own fans.
He scored 2 goals against his own goalie. I've never seen anything like it. I thought I was watching the highlights on Twitter, and I thought they just had replayed the first one that he scored against his goal. I was like, nope, this is a different one.
It's gotta be tough enough, living a little bit in the shadow of Jack and Quinn, right? I mean, not only are his brothers, better than him, but like they're both. Quinn Hughes is soundly the second best defenseman in the world. And Jack Hughes, I guess you could argue is a top 10 center, right? Pretty fairly top 10 center. So, it's however Mark Stahl felt with Eric and Jordan in front of him, amplify that by that much more for Luke, who I think has a ton of skill and potential in his own right, and he's younger and he has more time to prove himself. But his brothers have set a very high bar. Obviously, for him to reach. So he's probably already dealing with that on a daily basis, let alone scoring 2 goals in your own net and having to hear from the Rock over there in New Jersey.
And one of his brothers is dating Tate McRae. That can't feel good either, But I don't know if I've ever seen someone score 2 own goals in the same game. So I don't know if there's even stats that have been taken about own goals again. So I don't know, but I personally never seen or heard of somebody doing that.
Yeah, that was rough. And I couldn't help but think too, like New Jersey fans dream about this scenario where obviously Quinn Hughes ends up signing there and they have all 3 Hughes brothers, which we'll see if that ever comes to fruition or if Quinn Hughes just extends in Minnesota. But I was like, I don't know if booing Luke is really going to sell the Hughes brothers on this grand plan of all playing together for the Devils. I will say one other thing related to that I really liked is so Nico Hischier, captain of the Devils. Bridget will know how this works. Like, so media, sometime in the third period, team PR goes around and takes player requests for post game. And usually if a player isn't requested by someone, they're not going to be available because why would they just volunteer? So I guess Nico Hischier was not originally requested post game. I'm sure Luke Hughes was, but Hischier came out and made a point to talk and basically to defend Luke Hughes and say like, and people should like find his press conference because I just thought it was good. Like he talked about, like I get why fans are frustrated. We're all frustrated. But like he didn't like them booing Luke, and he was like, he's a hardworking kid and he's gonna bounce back. And I just thought that was like a good captain moment of like, no, we're not gonna throw Luke out there in front of it. Like I'm the captain. I'm gonna make sure I go out and talk.
Mm. All right. That just kind of makes me think of something else here. Speaking of captains, halfway through the season now, any opinions changing for you two in terms of who the future captain of the Bruins should be? Any developing opinions? You stay firm in your belief that maybe it should be David Pastrnak in time? We haven't talked about this in a while, and we did just pass the halfway point. So I'm sure this is something that management's talking about too. Hey, who are we thinking now at this point?
Yeah, it's a good time to check into because it's come up elsewhere. Like, so this came up. So I had a couple like fill-in shows on WEI over the holidays, and this did come up. Like, I think it's still kind of a, we're so into like the day to day, and for us, it's doesn't feel like as big of a story. But I think for some fans, and let's say like maybe more casual fans, it's like this is still a talking point. It's like people are still wondering, like what's going to happen here. My stance is I still don't think it's a story at all in that room. Like I don't think they care. I think the leadership is on the same page. That's Pastrnak, McAvoy, both Lindholm, Zadorov. Like obviously there's leaders beyond that, but those are the five guys who at some point this season have worn a letter. So I think those guys are on the same page and have a good rapport and a good relationship. And as long as they do, it doesn't really matter that none of them are wearing a C. Now, if things start to go south and this season becomes more challenging, that's when leadership really gets tested, right? Like that's when things could potentially get strained, or you might wish you had kind of one go-to guy as the voice with other voices falling in line. So they're maybe not quite to that point yet, but there's been a couple things that have come up over the last week that kind of related to this that I want to get into, but I'll let you guys go on whether you think it's if your opinions have changed at all.
I don't think my opinions changed. I will say I think that it's promising no matter who they choose, because I think I've seen good leadership from both of them this season, and that includes how they carry themselves after the games, in their responses and in their accountability, and just watching how they interact with their team and knowing what they're like, how respected both of them are among the rest of the locker room. So I think that the positive there is they're both probably qualified and both have a good ability to do it. I still think Pastrnak has a slight advantage, which is what I have been saying right along. He's slightly older. I think him being there when McAvoy wasn't last year, which McAvoy couldn't do anything about, obviously he's injured, but when Marchand leaves and there's a leadership void and Pastrnak's there and he's handling it well, and he's trying to fight through what was a difficult final stretch of last season after the trade deadline. So I don't know. I think they're both good leaders, and I guess that's what I'll say is I maybe was leaning stronger towards Pastrnak in the beginning of the season, but watching McAvoy get back and work really hard has been impressive. So maybe they're even closer now, honestly, than they were at the start.
I think that's a really accurate way to put it, Bridget, and that's pretty much how I feel, top to bottom. I think there's a good amount of fans that are probably also writing in Nikita Zadorov on their ballot potentially as an independent option. But I think it should be Pastrnak. I still feel that the way for McAvoy to become captain is more or less if Pastrnak just kind of like defers and like he just doesn't want. It's possible that that one of these players might not want the captaincy, and Pastrnak in particular. between commentary he's had in the past and he just seems like somebody who may not want the C or need the C to do his thing. But maybe I'm totally wrong about that. And behind closed doors, he's all for having the C if they ask him to. I just feel like it's his C to lose. I'll put it to you that way. And maybe if he feels like he'd rather just have an A and not be that captain, where English is a second language, and he might not want to have to deal with the media. But at the same time, he talks to the media every day anyway. Yeah,
he's in front of the media more than anyone else, and also he did learn how to say chemistry.
He did, and that probably is the last thing he had to do before getting the C. No, you're right, Bridget. He is in front of the media all the time, so it's probably not that. So yeah, I agree with you, Bridget. I think it's his C. I think the gap is a little bit smaller than I thought it was to start the season between him and McAvoy. And then the last thing I'll say, regardless of who is announced captain, because Scott, you're right, this is not a story between these guys in the room, but the organization has to announce a captain at some point. And one developing opinion I have is that Fraser Minten he's going to wear a letter in Boston. I think as early as his mid-20s. I think that kid has leadership qualities on and off the ice, and he's 21 right now. So, 4 or 5 seasons from now, I absolutely could see him wearing an A. Certainly as he approaches his late 20s into his 30s, I think he is a letter wearer in the NHL, and presumably with Boston.
Yeah, I mean, Marco Sturm, when he was talking about him, I think this was before the game Saturday, even said like he's kind of already a leader in his own way, and was basically talking about like his maturity, kind of like in all areas, both as a player in terms of understanding the game, but also like emotionally never getting too high or too low, in terms of taking care of his body and like being into everything he has to do off the ice to prepare. So yeah, I think it's clear that like, and we've heard that from some of his teammates too, about how he does things that just you don't see many 21-year-old rookies doing. So
including from Nikita Zadorov, who I think kind of has like a gauge on that kind of thing because he's paying attention to it a lot, I think. So and when he first came in, I know we mentioned this at the time, he had his locker put right next to David Pastrnak. And those two were bouncing ideas off each other, and Pastrnak was talking about right from the first few games or a few weeks of him being in Boston, Pastrnak was already talking about him as like, a good, I don't know if he said leader, but, just like a smart, matured guy. So yeah, even at, I think he was 20 at the time and 21 now, but he's got that going for him. And Scott, I think you maybe even posted on Twitter the quote that he had. Somebody asked him after the game about the power play because he hasn't gotten a lot of power play time this season, but he scores a power play goal in that game.
But just before you go any further, so this was I talked to him like a week and a half ago about this.
Oh, okay.
When he started practicing there.
But it was about the power play and about what was his natural when he played it at lower levels, what was his spot on the power play? And if you have the quote up Scott.
Yeah, he said so this wasn't even like during a scrum. I was just chatting with him off to the side, and he said my spot's wherever coach puts me. And I was like, all right, good answer. That's a good way to get on the power play. And then he was like, in juniors, it was actually more in the half wall, so it was more in the elbow. So like I think he got a little bit of bumper time in Providence at the very end of last season, or when he came over in the trade at some point. But yeah, it's like that's a new thing being added to his game now, and you see him getting put into some more offensive situations, right? Like now he's on a line with David Pastrnak, and he's getting power play time. So he is truly now like an all situations player for this team. He played 20 minutes Saturday night, a new career high. And Sturm said like that they actually kind of held him back on the power play because he is young and he's learning, and they wanted to, limit his minutes somewhere. So that was kind of like the last thing where they were like, we're not going to throw this at him just yet. But now halfway through, like Sturm feels comfortable putting him there and starting to work that into his game. And you see that play he makes on the goal where it's like takes the pass in, just quickly pivots his hips and fires and scores. Like, if that spot is up for the taking, right? Like the Bruins haven't had, Elias Lindholm has the bumper on the top unit. They haven't really had anyone kind of set in stone in that spot in the second unit. So if he runs with it, like that's his job.
Well, you know what I liked about that goal in particular is that the first power play unit didn't really make much of their opportunity. It was a pretty slow power play and there wasn't much rhythm. And they put the second unit out there, and yeah, Minten finishes it off by scoring the goal on a great play that you just mentioned, Scott. But he was the one who was carrying a puck up the ice and through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone. Like when he got on the ice, he just changed the speed of that power play. All of a sudden, Vancouver, who was comfortable in the first half of the power play, got uncomfortable, and Minton's speed put them on their heels and gained entry. And then next thing you know, a little bit later, he scores the goal. And then in the overtime session, he takes the puck down the ice and pulls up and wins a physical one-on-one battle with Kiefer Sherwood, who's a physical player. And that was just a mature play, and he goes to the net and finishes it off the right way. You know what I like about Fraser Minten too? Where did he start the season? Before the regular season started, before training camp, what was the first thing that the Bruins asked him to do?
I'm at a loss. I don't know where you're going with
Before
this.
the season?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Like pre-training camp?
Yeah.
Oh, well, he went to the Prospects Challenge.
Exactly. Now, do you think that's something
Yeah.
that he was over the moon to have to do? Or no, but he put his head down, said yes, sir, and went and had a great tournament. Like he was the best player there as he should have been. But that's something that wasn't being asked of everybody who was in his position heading into training camp, and he did it. He did it the right way and put his head down. So
he was the leader of that team too. I don't know
yeah.
if they ever gave him a letter, but he was the de facto, if not anything else, leader of that team.
He could have been immature about that and pissed and moaned and pouted behind closed doors, or he could have said, you know what, they're sending me here to help me get my legs going before training camp. Like they want me to go down there and prove that I can be a leader, and I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna be a leader, and I'm gonna get myself in gear and get my touches and go into training camp better off because of it. And so I just think that it was a mature mind. He has a mature mind.
And it's maybe like hard to remember back to the way that he was perceived then, because I think it's his perception and his role has grown so much since that point. But he wasn't a sure thing to make the Bruins in training camp, so for him, it was probably a good thing to maybe have a little bit of a head start and hit the ground running when it came to actual training camp and preseason. And I remember he gave a very similar answer to what Scott just read about his position on the power play. Like, I'll go wherever coach puts me. When he was asked about the Prospects Challenge, they're like, oh, were you surprised you were going, or something like that? And he goes, I just do what I'm told to do. So like, it was a very similar.
Yeah. I remember
what they tell me.
Yeah, I remember there's a funny moment. I think someone asked like, what was the discussion around like you going or not? And he was like, Don Sweeney told me I'm going.
Yeah, exactly.
But Bridget, like the point that you're making about it's a good thing for him to go to training camp, having that tournament under his belt, that comes from a mature mindset. Like Fraser Minten had 20 games with Boston under his belt last season, maybe a little bit more, and more with a couple more with Toronto. Like he had 30 or so NHL games to his name at that point. I'm spitballing. So
no,
I don't think it was quite that much.
No, so he only had, coming into this season, he only had 25 NHL games, and he only played 6 with the Bruins last year.
6?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay, all right, but still, he has 25 NHL games to his name. I'm sure there's a lot of prospects that have played 25 games that if they're being asked to go to play a rookie tournament, prospect tournament, they'd probably be like, I'm too good for that. I'm past that point. Like he didn't have that mentality is all I'm saying. So whether it was 30 games or 25, he had games to his name in the NHL, a lot more than probably anybody in that tournament had. So yeah, it just shows good maturity from him. That's
And
all.
I wanted to mention too. I put in the group chat asking because I knew Scott could find it quicker than I could. But so obviously we're watching his role maybe expand to power play time for the first time with the Bruins. Maybe because he scores the goal, we see that continue. I don't see why they wouldn't go back to him next game in Seattle on the power play again. And it made me think like he's been on the penalty kill from the start of the season. Like he that was a role that he's had. And I'm almost a little bit surprised that he has a power play goal before he has a shorthanded goal because I think he's come pretty close on some of those. But he is third on the Bruins among Bruins forwards, I should say, in shorthanded time on ice this season behind, and it's not shockingly, Corrali and Kastelik, because Corrali is out there, I feel like, for all of every penalty. But so he's third in shorthanded time on ice, and that has been a big role and a big contribution he's given, even when not scoring, and that's not his role anyway. He's been able to be a good penalty killer and a reliable penalty killer. And if he's now going to be playing all three facets, that's big growth for him in the first, like, just over half of a full season, in his first, what seems like will be full season in the NHL. So he's not only did he make the team, he held on to his spot, he's progressed and he's developed and he's shown maturity, and so a lot of positives to say about his season.
Yeah, and then just to maybe wrap up the Fraser Minten discussion and bring it to the personal side of him playing his first, playing in his hometown for the first time as an NHLer, was just obviously a great story to then go score 2 goals, including the overtime winner. And, I think it's important for teams to have moments like this pop up throughout the season where, like, yeah, this is amazing for Fraser Minten. And he, after the game, called it like I think he said one of the best days of his life, or I forget his exact quote. But basically saying like it's a life highlight. But I also think that extends to the rest of the team, where like everyone just gets excited for him. And you could sense that. You could kind of sense that from other players when they were asked about him and like how awesome this moment is. You could sense it from Marco Sturm, like even before the game, he said like, yeah, I talked to him a little bit about it, and he was telling me how, his parents live like a 5 to 10 minute walk from Rogers Arena in Vancouver. Now, I don't think that's where he was born, but that they moved there at some point. Like I think when he started playing minor hockey. But yeah, he was talking about how like him and his buddies would just go to games and like look for free tickets after the first period or something. And obviously, yeah, the memories of 2011 when he was a kid. I think he said he was like probably crying somewhere after the game, after Game 7. But it's like, again, you're on this Western Canada road trip. You've been kind of just gone through this tough stretch, and I think these moments where it's easy for the entire team to rally around it and feel good for Minten, and like it can just kind of lift everyone up, even if it's just for a couple days. Like it's good to have those during the season.
So here's a reason why potentially this could be a turning point for the Bruins in a positive way. This slide for Boston really started with their loss to Vancouver in Boston, a game where the Bruins outshot the Canucks 43-23 and lost in a shootout. The infamous Andrew Peak, like you used to shootout game. So, from there you lose to Ottawa, you lose to Edmonton, Montreal, Buffalo, Calgary. So that kind of kickstarted the losing streak. Well, now you obviously snapped the losing streak against Edmonton, but you followed up against Vancouver in a game where it was kind of a reversal of the last game against Vancouver, where this time around it was Vancouver who outplayed Boston and they outshot him 33-21. But it's the Bruins who find a way in overtime to get the extra point. Obviously, an overtime goal for Minten rather than a shootout win like Vancouver had. So maybe this is a change in the wins for the Bruins. Obviously, their team metrics, both basic and advanced are average to below average outside of the power play. So it's going to take a hell of a lot more than a change in the winds for the Bruins to play better hockey. But I don't know, if you're looking for signs, maybe this is something that you can look forward to as a Bruins fan potentially.
Yeah, you would hope so. But you're right to highlight that, like, they did get outplayed most of this game, and we shouldn't totally ignore that because it ends up being a big win in the feel good story with Fraser Minten. I did not think this was a game that the Bruins really played well at all most of the game.
But Scott, at least they stayed out of the box though, Scott, right?
Oh yeah, they hold on, let me check how many power plays Vancouver. Oh, 6. The Canucks had 6 power plays.
They killed off the first 4, and then once they took the 5th one at the end of the second period, I was like, they're not killing this off. And then no, they didn't. It ended up being a power play goal at the end of the period, and they end up going tied 2-2 into the third. It's like you knew it was going to happen once you saw the 5th one come, because it was just one after another, and it was frustrating again to watch that.
Insane.
And Marco Sturm said after the game, and you could tell kind of in a moment of frustration, he was like, yeah, it's a lot of the same guys. And he's right. And like he didn't name them, but I mean, 4 of your penalties in this game, 2 from Zadorov, 1 from Kastelik, 1 from Hampus Lindholm. Those 3 guys, Zadorov, Kastelik, Hampus Lindholm, plus Charlie McAvoy, those 4 all rank in the top 30 in the NHL in minor penalties taken this season. So like that's not even counting. Take Kastelik's fights, Zadorov matching roughs and all that. Take that stuff out of it. Like just minor penalties taken. Those guys all rank in the top 30 in the NHL. That's 32 teams and you have 4 guys in the top 30. So like, yeah, it is a lot of the same guys, and it's those 4 in particular. And McAvoy has cut back a little recently, so give some credit there. But Zadorov, Kastelik, Hampus Lindholm, it's like those guys. You gotta find a way to get through, get it in their heads to stop taking these penalties. Like, now Zadorov's his penalties in this game. The cross check in front of the net, I thought was a little bit of a soft call. I think that happens a lot. Delay game, puck over glass is a freak play. So, okay, whatever. But like it's still, that's 4 minutes of penalties. And then Kastelik, high stick, another careless stick infraction. How many of those have we seen? And Hampus Lindholm holding, like, did I think it was a little bit of soft call? Yeah, but he has his free hand away from his body in the side of the Vancouver player, and like there's a little bit of a grab there. Like you gave the ref an excuse to call it, right? Like I think I would prefer to just see that get let go and play on, but you had your hand there. Like you open the door for him to call it, and and that's kind of been a recurring thing with him too. Some of these free hand penalties, like I don't know. I thought Hampus Lindholm was really good. Other than that, so it's like. But yeah, the penalty stuff, I don't know if you go so far as to bench any of these guys or like reduce their ice time. Like you kind of need them all. So I don't know if you even can do that. But I mean, something's got to set in at some point.
I mean, Lindholm's going to get injured by snapping his head back so much after he gets called for a penalty, looking to the heavens. It's like, dude, your hand is off your stick. It's holding him. And what pisses me off the most about Hampus Lindholm's penalties is he's a good skater. Like skating is his strength. So if you're a strong skater and you're covering ice, why do you need to have so many stick infractions and holding infractions? Like push and release, be on top of, like, there's no reason for it. So I don't know. What has his historical numbers been? We can look this up in time. Has Hampus Lindholm always been a frequent penalty like guy who gets penalties?
He's on track for a career high.
Like I don't know what it is, because if you have a slower defenseman that's behind the play, and guys are doing all sorts of stop and goes on them, or just good pivots and whatnot. Like you're gonna clutch and grab because you can't keep up. Lindholm can keep up, and he's a big boy, so it just makes no sense to me why he's why he's resorting to so many minor penalties. It's a gamely thing with him. It's felt that way for about a month plus since he got back from injury, really.
Yeah, his career high was 63 penalty minutes in 73 games 2 years ago. This year he has 36 penalty minutes in 34 games. So over a penalty minute per game for the first time in his career.
Yeah, it's too much.
Prior to like the last few years, he was under 50 every year.
Yeah. It's noticeable too when he takes them, just because it's like, it just feels like once you notice it, it's very obvious, and it's in your face, and it's been tough. But I do think that him and Aspero have been playing pretty well together. The penalties can really hurt you, obviously, when you take 6, and I still can't believe that they had the success that they did against the Oilers with the penalties that they took in the personnel on that power play. But you're setting yourself up for failure there. And I did want to mention, I thought that Aspero had another pretty solid game. Obviously, he didn't score like the game before, but
He's just nails.
I do like that pair. Well, he had this one play where he just bodied a guy down and like kind of stood over him for a second. It was out in front of the net, maybe like 5 feet up in front of the crease, or maybe even closer than that. And I forget who it was, but he just laid like a very clean check, and the guy just went right down. And it was just, he stepped up to try to make the play, and he won the physical battle. And I don't know, like, it was just a simple play, but he stopped whoever that was from getting a point blank chance. And you just notice that he's pretty solid. He's not the biggest guy, but he's definitely solid. He's hard to move.
Well, you know how you can tell he's making an impact is any chance the opposition gets to kind of give him a little extra shove or jab, whether it's during the whistle, during play, or after the whistle, they do it. He gets under the skin of the opposition, and he just plays a solid game. Like, he just plays a solid game. And the thing about, he has played great with Lindholm's played better since being with Aspero, and that pair's been good. And Scott, you mentioned Lindholm played great last night besides the penalties. I thought he did too. But the thing about his penalties that also annoy me is when he takes them. Like, it just feels like they're the worst timed penalties. Like, you start the game against Montreal, penalty. And then last night, Bridget, you mentioned the parade to the penalty box, and Boston kills all of them. And then you got to take another one right before the period ends, and that's the one that Vancouver scores on. It's like you've spent 8 of the last 20 minutes killing penalties. You're like, your teammates are tired, you're tired, and you take a hold. It's like, at some point the dam's gonna break if you keep going to the box. And so it's not just the frequency, it's the timing of it too. It's absolutely maddening. I don't understand it, and I don't know what he has to do. Well, I do know what he has to do. He's got to smarten up, because it's not a matter of inability of skating and keeping up with the play. I don't know how somebody hasn't pulled him aside and be like, "Hey, Hampus, push and release." Like, but maybe they are. He just can't help himself right now.
I have a good transition too, because the penalty killing.
Sorry, Bridget. Before you do, on Aspero, I was going to mention I'm always kind of like amused by his facial expressions, because he's pretty expressionless. But like, when he gets in those scrums and like a guy goes after him, he had his face, and I don't think he's doing anything intentionally. I think it's just kind of how he is. But his face always looks like, why are you mad at me? It's like don't come after me. What are you doing?
I need an Aspero jersey right now. I might need an Aspero jersey more than I need a Husadinov jersey right now. And that's saying
you already had one of those.
No, that's true. I had a home one. I need an away one.
Yeah. So my transition was gonna be that the penalty kill hasn't given up as many goals as maybe it could have over the last 2 games, which were 2 important wins, partially because of the way Jeremy Swayman's been playing. And he's had some really key stops on the penalty kill. And I don't even think this was on the penalty kill. Correct me if I'm wrong, but his 2 toe saves on DeBrusk.
I think one of them was.
Yeah,
it is one of his. Those were some of his best saves of the season. And the last 2 games has been playing just peak Swayman. and maybe making a case for himself to get a little bit more ice time during the Olympics. But that would also probably require a drop off from the other two. But either way,
which by the way has happened. I mean, Connor Hellebuck's lost 8 in a row, I think. Like that Winnipeg team has been awful, and he has not really looked the same since coming back from injuries. So I think that this next month could decide a lot in terms of which U.S. goalie or how many U.S. goalies get playing time.
And that's probably great motivation for him. So that's great for the Bruins. Like, he's probably feeling this background motivation to play his best hockey so that he actually gets to be the guy in the most important games, or at least getting more time than he did in Four Nations. So that's a little bit of outside motivation for him to play well, and he already has been playing well. So maybe you benefit from that. And I know I'm like a day or two late to seeing it because I'm not always on Twitter. All right. I try to not be. But then I'll see something, I'm like, damn it, I wish I saw this in real time because I would have mentioned something about it. But when they showed the video of him getting his call, they said Bill Guerin said it was a no-brainer. Like, not like it wasn't even close, essentially. Like, he said, yeah, it's a no-brainer. And so that was just interesting wording for me, where, he was kind of the third guy in Four Nations. So is that a safe spot to be in? And it sounded like they didn't really ever question it.
Yeah, I think his play at World Championships did a lot for that U.S. management group. Like, we mentioned this like the day that Ross came out, but it's clear that they put a lot of value on that tournament and the guys who stepped up, which is why Tage Thompson and Clayton Keller made it too, because they were really good in that tournament, and so was Jeremy Swayman. So my guess is probably from that moment, from that tournament, they considered him a no-brainer. And there had been some reporting about that too, like might have been Anthony DeMarco at Daily Faceoff like a month or two ago. Did like a U.S. roster projection based on what he was hearing, not like what he thought should happen. And he said, like, everything I've heard indicates the U.S. is going with the same 3 goalies and no one else is in the conversation. And it seems like that was correct.
Something else Guerin mentioned on that call with Swayman was how good of a teammate he knows he is, which for any speculation about how Swayman is in the room, I mean, maybe Guerin's blowing smoke. I don't know why you would just randomly say that. I mean, you could say congrats on making the team, Sway. Like, we're happy to have you. But he went as far to mention that he's how good of a teammate that Gagnon knows he is. So that's coming from people around the league and also from world champ. What's it called? World championships.
Yeah.
And I will say, I don't know if you guys have caught like some of the videos of the calls, because they filmed them and they, every team kind of posted, oh, this was our guy getting the call. And some of them, well, first of all, some people didn't pick up right away. They were surprised on how many people just like were sending them to not sending them to voicemail. But I heard Brock Nelson saying, I was out skating. I was doing my morning skate or whatever. And but
Gagnon told him he's too old to practice.
Yeah, he did. He said
that was funny.
Brad Marchand clearly got woken up by his call. He was half asleep.
Yeah.
If you call me at 7 a.m., that is going to wake me up, because I am normally not.
Was it New Year's Day that they were getting called? Because that could explain some groggy voice.
Yeah, I think it was
6:30 a.m. New Year's Day.
I think it was New Year's Eve, honestly, but maybe it was New Year's Day, and that would.
I think it was New Year's Eve. I think it was the day before.
New Year's Eve. But so what I was gonna say about the difference in hearing everyone respond to these calls was like, some guys were just like, okay, and they were just like, thanks, and then it's like you could tell they were trying to go right back to sleep or something. They just didn't seem that excited, or as excited as you would think. And then Swayman's was like, oh, I'm so grateful, and like Swayman gave like the actual kind of answer I would think that people would give. He's like, oh, it's such an honor, like that's he gave very good answers, and I don't doubt that they were genuine. So it was just interesting.
At the way some guys sounded, it made me think, like, I was just waiting for the are you guys fans of the movie Major League?
Oh yeah.
just one of the all-time classics, the scene where they first call up the guy who ends up being the manager, and he's working at a car dealership, and the the GM or owner, whoever it is who's calling him, is like all excited. He's like, "How'd you like to manage in the Cleveland Indians?" And he's like, let me think about it. And he's like, what do you mean? This is a chance to manage in the major leagues. And he's like, I'm really busy. Can I call you back?
That's funny.
That's a good comp. Even some of the guys that like hadn't made the team, like I watched the one that they made to Tage Thompson, and even he was kind of like, oh, cool. Just like anticlimactic, I think, a lot of those calls.
Yeah. Also, Garen's conversation with Hellebuck, the way that they were talking, I mean, again, Scott, you mentioned his recent struggles in that, and obviously he was injured for some time, but we know that the conversations with the players were this past week, so they're up to date. And, Garen, the way that they were talking to each other, it was the way that somebody would talk to a number one goalie. And I forget verbatim what was said, but it was more along the lines of like, we're going to need you. And Hellebuck was saying that, or I think Garen said, I hope you're ready. And Hellebuck said, yeah, I'm more ready for this than anything in my, whatever he said. So that doesn't mean that the net can't be won by Swayman or Ottinger, but I think going into the tournament, it's definitely Hellebuck's net to lose.
Yeah, I would say certainly as of right now, I think it remains that way, but I do think things could change in this next month. You also,
that's true.
You have 3 group stage games to, again, not that you want to take anything for granted, but I'm going to say to play with, where, they're lesser opponents, Latvia, Germany, Denmark. I think at least 2 guys are getting ice time in the group stage. You have a back-to-back in there. They play, I think, Saturday and Sunday during the group stage. So, yeah, I mean, Hellebuck, yes, I think he's probably, as of right now, pencil it in as him being the number one. I just think like there's an opportunity. I think things could change.
Then did any of you guys look at what the schedule is in Eastern time? Because
yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, the gold medal game is at 8 a.m.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's not no noon or later for me. Come on, I will be up, but 8 a.m. is not the kind of time that I'm ready to like be fully awake. And though that is hypocritical, because when they were in Sochi, I was watching games at like 4 a.m. and I was just as excited as I've ever been. And it wasn't even the US. It'd be like Czech Republic against Slovakia at 3 a.m. Yeah, I'll be up. I'll see you there. But
yeah, all their group stage games are 3 o'clock, I think. 3 o'clock Eastern in the afternoon. So like that's nice.
Which is, I think, 9 p.m. there.
Yeah.
It's late there. So
obviously you can't manage your roster as Team USA specifically regarding Canada, but if it does come down to, I wonder how much weight goes into decision making in terms of who's going to start in goal for the US in the medal round, depending on who they're playing, and how many of those players on the opposition are maybe in the same conference as the goaltender for the US. So like, for example, if the US were to play Canada, 7 of the 8 rostered defensemen for Canada are of the Western Conference. And then your forward group for Canada is a pretty even mix, but your top ones, Celebrini, McDavid, McKinnon, those guys are all in the West. So if you're Team USA, if all things are considered equal, let's say that each goalie is all playing equally well, I wonder if there's a benefit to having a goaltender in net who's played these players, or if it's a benefit to have a goaltender who hasn't played them as much because those players have less of a book on one goalie. I wonder if there's a benefit either way. Like, because if a goalie's familiar with players, that means that they're familiar with the goalie. And then, same thing. If they aren't familiar with the players aren't familiar with. It's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. My gut is that there's probably enough familiarity all around anyways. that I don't really think it would matter that much.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like Hellebuck, like, he's played McDavid and McKinnon so much, and McCarr and Josh Morrissey is his team. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I wonder if there's more of a book on him for some of those top players in the West, but ultimately, yeah, I don't think it's a huge thing. There's gamesmanship to be thought of with that. So, anyway, random thought by me, but while we're on the topic of goaltending and stuff.
No, it's an interesting thought. I mean, sometimes Brian's brain outputs stuff that we
I got a
don't think
weird
of,
brain.
so.
I got a weird brain. I apologize to you guys and the listeners. I know I'm out to lunch. I know I'm 2 sheets to the wind, but sometimes it's worth bringing up.
Drunk? I've always thought that meant you were drunk.
No, I think it's the large coffee. Brian was telling us before the podcast that he's drinking more coffee now. So
again, he spiked it.
No free ads, but
yeah. No, it's that time of year. I mean, we're all a little bit exhausted working in hockey season and it being so dark so early and so cold, and I'm ready for a beach. I don't know about you guys, but it's not coming anytime soon for me.
I was
end of this month, 1 month from now. That's when I'm on the beach at the end of the
rub it in.
The end of the Bruins Florida trip.
Yeah. Well, I can't go because I have to work here.
Yeah, who's counting down the days though? Not me.
Definitely, I can't wait for him to come back lobster red.
Oh yeah, me neither. By the way, what are the sales looking like on our Stadium Series jersey? Any those flying off the shelves?
They are, and actually, as we get closer, they're becoming even a hotter commodity. So
good.
Yeah.
I think we've now made enough money off those to sustain the podcast for 2 more episodes.
To retire.
2 whole more episodes. Okay. Yeah.
There we go. Look at that. Bridget, is that an AI version of Scott?
So some of this was Bridget's Photoshop and some of this was AI.
Okay, because it looks like 97% like Scott, but there's like 3% that just like looks a little bit off to me.
Yeah. It's because when I had AI put the hat on him, it like slightly changed his face.
Yeah. Oh, looks good.
Most of the rest of it was me, but the hat and the Hawaiian shirt was AI.
So Bridget gave me a nice Christmas gift this year. It was a glass.
Still waiting for yours, but
listen, it's like a wedding. You get a year from the date. So
yeah, Christmas.
But I'm a little disappointed. My Christmas gift wasn't just that shirt and hat.
Listen, I bought the glass before I even thought of the whole.
I mean, what am I supposed to wear in Florida now?
No, you're right. It's what I'm hearing is that you would like a second gift, even though you didn't get me one, and you want that to be a fedora and a Hawaiian shirt. Which, you know what? Maybe if you give me my Christmas gift, I'll think about it.
What if I wear that covering the Stadium Series game and for our podcast afterwards?
Ooh.
You can buy it yourself. I don't know if you've thought of that option.
That's just not going to happen.
You don't have the ability to.
Wasn't my creation. I don't even know where to find that.
Yeah, but you're like, damn, I look good in that outfit. I need to try.
I really do.
Well, guys, I think we're ready to sign off here soon. Just one last thing I wanted to mention is
what tipped you off to that?
I wanted to congratulate you two and everybody listening as well that put up with this difficult schedule the last couple of weeks. I mean, I was writing a recap recently, and I was like, this is very needed this week because everybody has a busy holiday schedule between, whether it's you celebrate Hanukkah or certainly Christmas. Everybody knows that there's a lot of Christmas parties and stuff. Before Christmas, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, like all these things. You're running around getting presents for people, whatever. Hard enough to watch the Bruins. Let's add a 5-game road trip with 9 to 10 p.m. start times on top of that. So if you've been, and by the way, a 6-game losing streak, which is some nights it's tough to stay up for I can't wait to watch this game, see if they lose 7 in a row. So for those of you that stuck it out and watch all these games and, in real time, like hats off to you. It was a difficult stretch, a lot being asked, loyalty, and patience being asked of Bruins fans this past week and all those who cover it. So we're on the other side of it almost. One more in Seattle on Tuesday night, and then I think maybe a couple of games, maybe one in Dallas, maybe a couple Central Time still, but for the most part, I think it's going to be local times the rest of the season.
Yeah. Five game homestand coming up after Seattle, which includes a Saturday matinee game against the Rangers, a nice 5 o'clock Sunday against the Penguins. Real nice doubleheader with Patriots playoffs playing Sunday night. You get, a week from Thursday, the Chara jersey number retirement coming up on January 15th.
Well, after this game against Seattle, the Bruins, the rest of January, have 9 home games and 3 road games. So, like, the rest of the month is mostly at home.
Yeah, and some big games, too. Like Pittsburgh, Scott just mentioned, that's a big game. There's a game against Detroit, I think, next week. Big game, right? So, I mean, you could put big game next to the rest of their schedule. But when you talk about divisional games and then games against teams that you're fighting with for wild card spots in the next week, Pittsburgh and Detroit. So, hopefully the Bruins can right the wrongs of their most recent homestand where they lost the final 4 of a 5-game homestand. So hopefully this one looks a little bit better. And it's going to need to. It's going to need to. We talked about it. They got to what do we want to call it for a winning percentage right now? They're 548 on the season. What do they need the rest of the way out? Like a 667? Right? Something like that. I know the conference might be forgiving, but let's call it that. 2 out of 3 games.
You certainly have to be over 600, I would think. I haven't fully done the math, but
yeah. Okay.
By the way, Seattle team Tuesday night that's been playing some pretty good hockey recently. I think they've won 6 or 7.
Yeah, and like we've seen,
we can end with 6-7.
Oh God, it's a new year. Please don't. I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to do this right now. Please.
Should have signed off 2 minutes ago.
What number did Morgan Geekie wear in Seattle?
I don't know. Was it 6-7?
67. All right, we'll sign out there. Thank you all very much for listening, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.